you have to get out. You got to shake hands with people. You got to meet people. You've got to get out of your cocoon and find out who the local business associations are. You have to get out. You have to network, and you have to talk to people about what their pain points are and what they want and what they're looking for.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development. We are back with Leza Raffel of the Communication Solutions Group. Leza, thank you for coming back on.
Thank you.
So this episode, we're going to talk about identifying your precise target market and how to reach out to them. But to start, can you just give us a quick intro to the Communication Solutions Group?
Oh, sure. We are a full-service public relations and marketing firm. We're located in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. I started the company 34 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great. Are you guys doing anything crazy for the 35th anniversary?
I'll have to start planning that. We did something fun for 20. We had a party in a wine cellar for 30. I'll start thinking about 35.
Good. Well, let's dive in. Part of the magic of that longevity is finding your target client and locking them in. So what's your process for figuring out who your target audience is for your clients?
I think a lot of times you want to think that everyone could be your client, but quite honestly, they can. So for people that are watching this that are, a chiropractor, they're serving a small immediate area, like you have to look at the geographic range that people are willing to travel, especially if they're in pain or something like that. In our particular case, we like to look at the industries that we enjoy working in. We like working with trade associations. We like working with nonprofits. We like working with educational organizations, colleges and school districts, municipalities. So, for me, I hone in on how do I reach those people. But for, people in other lines of work, you take a look at, who is your target market? I'll talk hypothetically, like if you are a private elementary school, let's say, not everyone can afford you. Not everyone is going to travel that distance. So, you look at the population in terms of the age of the parents, for sure. You look at, their geographic area. You look at their income range, age of their children, and you could actually acquire all this through list acquisition. So if that private school were going to be doing a targeted residential mailing or an email blast, which is a little bit more challenging to get a complete list, they could acquire that information. They could really cultivate that list, or they can take a look at what are some of the groups that these people might also be associated with. Is it the Little League down the road? Are these families affiliated with a local, church or synagogue? Are they going to the ballet school? Are they, so that they could start finding ways to target people that way? What parent school expo do they go to? So we have found ourselves getting into some very specific niches in the past in an effort to reach, different types of clients and really digging into the weeds about what trade association or professional association they're a member of, what conference is the one they all absolutely go to, what are they reading? Yeah, they're reading, online, they have their regular news sources, or maybe they're still reading them in print, but what are they reading in terms of to keep themselves up in terms of the industry? What podcast are they listening to? Because we want to try and target those as well.
So these are a lot of great questions. Do you have any sources for finding the answers to these questions? If somebody's wondering all these questions themselves, where do you look to find the answers?
Yeah, there is so much, in industry publications, you could probably find that out, right? Like if you are that use that private school as an example, through their own, industry associations, it probably has been covered in trade journals and research articles about, the age ranges, the income, why people choose one school over another. So the data is always out there for everything. I keep using that example, but it could be anything, why people choose an HVAC company. why they choose a privately owned HVAC company over something that's, a franchise all over the country. So you can get that information, and then you leverage your message based on, that information that you get. So I try and learn like the lingo of my clients and, speak their language, when I'm prospecting them,
Is there like a specific strategy you follow in the copy and messaging that when you're doing an outreach to someone who's a cold lead, essentially?
Oh yeah, I mean, once again, if you know what their pain points are. So if I'm looking at some of the municipalities that we do work with, their pain points inevitably, and I know this because I speak at their conferences and I read their publications, is that, they have a meeting, they have a public meeting, 6 people show up, they vote on something really important, and the 5,000 other people say, I had no idea. Why didn't they tell us? Why are they keeping this secret? So clearly they need to be communicating out to their other stakeholders. Just because it happened at a meeting and 6 people were there doesn't mean that everyone else is in the know. And so, I address that. That is the plague of, many municipalities. Like, no one understands why we did this. People don't know what we're doing for them. All they do is complain on social media. So we make sure we address that, and we say, what are your, something along the lines of, what's keeping you up at night, or what is upsetting your stakeholders. That's what I always say. What is upsetting your stakeholders? Tax increases, safety issues, redevelopment. They're really upset, but that's because they don't know what you're doing. So we'll take a look at all the ways that they can now communicate to those people.
And how do you, let's keep going with the elementary school example. How do you do follow-ups? Say you sent either an email or a physical letter out to them. What's like do you just let that sit?
Well, you should be driving them to an open house, right? You should be trying to get them to an event. So, I'll use kind of a parallel example. We run the practical nursing program for the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. And their target market is people in Delaware County that either are a nursing assistant, or maybe they're like a massage therapist, or maybe they're just working at like a geriatric facility, but they're not, they need to take it to the next level, right? So we buy that list, and we have an open house. It's a Zoom open house. We have one next week for them, and we have our whole panel lined up, and we drive them to the website to RSVP, and on the website there's all sorts of videos on people that are in the program, how they're working full time here or there, or maybe they're students right now, and they're in the sim lab, and they're showing how they get to work on all these simulations. So they're seeing all that, right? And so we know how they got, how there's the call to action that's driving them to RSVP for the program. So then we actually get to sit in on them on the webinar, and they always ask them, like, how did you hear about it? Please put it in the message box. And people will either say social. We do a lot of boosted content on social, right? So we target people once again by their age, zip code area. So we're pushing a lot of content about this at them too, right? So they're now saying, oh, I saw it on social media. Oh, I received a mailing. Oh, I saw this. I saw lawn signs. So now we know about that. And then the next day, they're inundated with people now calling, like, okay, when do I take my test to sit for the whatever? Where's the application? And so when we first started working with them, they only had 18 students enrolled in the new class. Now they have, their maximum is 50. They now have 50, and they always have an 8 to 10 person waiting list. And we've only been working for them 2 years, but like the word has spread, like this is the program you want to go to. It only takes 13 months, and now you're a LPN and you're working and all this other stuff.
So is that a free Zoom event that you organize? So you're driving them using like traditional marketing tools like emails and stuff, and then driving them towards an engagement that's free.
That's right. And they can ask their questions on there. They usually have a panel. They have the director of the program. They have the director of the DCIU. They have an alumni that talks about how awesome it was. They have a student. They have the financial aid lady, so she could answer all the financial aid questions.
Do you follow that model for other industries as well, like driving into some kind of an engagement?
Yeah, there has to be. Yes, when I think about like faith-based organizations that we've worked with or seminars, it's always driving people to some sort of an event. Now, recently we had a really great example of driving people to an event. We were running referendum campaigns in New Jersey. New Jersey is a referendum state. And so if a municipality's budget has to go up by more than 2%, people have to come out and vote on it. And that includes even like the fire budget, right? So if someone decides to vote by mail and they don't know why it's going up, and they're just like, I vote no, and they just mail it, or they just show up and they're really angry and they just vote no. So we ran 3 simultaneous referendum campaigns in New Jersey this year. All 3 municipalities had lost previous years, but we ran their campaigns, all the reasons why yes votes matter. So you can say vote yes because they're using municipal money to pay us, but we could educate people on why they need this. We could break the figure down and say this is a flat tax increase for the average homeowner, or this is only going to cost you $9.60 a month, but we're going to be able to replace a fire truck. We're going to be able to retain 2 full-time firefighter positions, blah, blah, blah. All 3 referendums won. So they all won. Their voters came in, either they voted by mail, yes, or they voted, and it wasn't even close. They all major won. So that's a great example of driving people to a call to action, which is show up and vote, or get your ballot in the mail and vote.
So I've heard it said that people love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. So how do you craft these events to provide the value that people feel like they're getting something out of it, not being like sold to or kind of pushed into a direction?
Because people have to look, there's education to be gleaned. So I remember working for another Montessori school many years ago, and they had a speaker there about what you need to know about raising a tween. The kid's not a teen, they're not whatever, they're in between, they're a tween. And that was very appealing because parents were pulling their hair out wondering, how am I going to raise my tween? So there has to be some sort of, information they're going to glean out of it. And the open house for the Practical Nurse program is very informative. It's not a sign up with us, we're awesome. It's, where's this job market heading? What can LPNs do now that they just couldn't do before? There's a major nursing shortage. There's just, by 2030, the senior population is going to be the highest it's ever been. And they desperately need nurses. So it's a great career path.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's something that we've been interested in implementing, is putting together some workshops or things like that where we can provide a value for free and education on things that people are really interested in, and matching that with the pain points that they're experiencing.
Yes.
Is that kind of the idea of what you've been putting together?
We did one. So we're in Jenkintown, and we're a couple doors from a movie theater called the Highway Theater. So we rented out the theater, and we did bagels, and it was a mega marketing on a shoestring budget, or it was either that, or it was getting your word out as an unsung hero for nonprofits. And everyone we invited was a nonprofit. So they all came, they ate, and they learned all the nuances of what they could do as a nonprofit that you really can't do as a for-profit company, like public service announcements on radio, and that the media is more likely to interview you if you're a nonprofit because you're not trying to make money out of it, you're trying to educate people. So we had a really nice turnout on that. So yeah, the workshops that you're driving people to an event, food is a motivator for sure, but I think it's also helpful to just understand traffic patterns and when does it make sense for you to hold this, so you don't have a bunch of people just time of year, so they're not held up because of a blizzard or whatever. So
what would you recommend to someone who's, let's say they were you 34 years ago, just starting out in that first year of business? How would you recommend they get started in their outreach?
Well, the network, you have to move away from, people are doing a lot online right now, right? They're on LinkedIn, they're just clicking, sending resumes. I really hate that. You have to be you have to get out. You got to shake hands with people. You got to meet people. You've got to get out of your cocoon and find out who the local business associations are. The first thing I did was join the Chamber of Commerce in my era. I've now been a member for probably 1 year shy of when I started the business. I overheard them saying, like, I was at an event last year. They're like, yeah, Leza's like I don't know if they said the oldest member, the longest term member. And I thought, wow, that's kind of wild. You have to get out. You have to network, and you have to talk to people about what their pain points are and what they want and what they're looking for.
Awesome. Well, Leza, thank you again. We have one more episode coming up where we're going to talk about crisis communication for clients, which crises always come and you never know when they're going to come. Yes. So I'm really excited for that. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.